Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. We've got a lot to talk about here on my YouTube channel the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I want you to go there or go to Facebook, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only place where I can accept friends. And I'm on X at Santita J. Please get on over there, everybody. And there's also the Santita Jackson or the Santita J show. So please go to any of those platforms. We are streaming there right now. Hey, Andre. Hey, Robert. Shalom to you. Sending so much love to you and to our Jewish brothers and sisters who are in the midst of their two high holy days, Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah, excuse me, rather. And then, of course, Yom Kippur, where they repent and reflect and repent. Of course, Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement or repentance, but in their new year, something upon which we can all learn, and I think we all kind of do this, they reflect. So it's something to be said for that. And I want to thank, if not now, and so many of these groups that came together last night to commemorate October 7th, and not only the Israelis who were killed and those who are being held hostage, but they were also remembering all of the lives of the Palestinians who've been lost. It was quite a moving event, and I'm honored that they would ask me, and by extension, our community and the Black church to participate. We have to continue to build these connections because we are one, everybody. As the theme of last night's event was, every life a universe.
Wow.
And yeah, absolutely. And when you really think about it, every life is a universe. Every life
Absolutely.
is precious. Minister Curtis Gatewood out down there in North Carolina, stop killing us. It's a solutions oriented program. You were with us a few weeks ago, and I'm so glad that you're back. I'm just sorry about the circumstances. We plan to have you back, and we will still do that as we talk about the vote. And we'll really be talking about these polls in the next hour. Do you believe them? Uh, and which polls do you believe? And are you participating in the polls? Are they calling you? Hey, Kenneth, you're on YouTube. That's right. Get on over there. Jewel, hey, sweetie, how you doing up there in New York? Everybody, thumbs up, thumbs up. Everybody who's watching, please like it, like it. It helps us with our algorithm. Thumbs up, thumbs up. I need you to put those thumbs up. Like the show, and share the show. Um, but we're watching really uh, during hurricane season, a hurricane season unlike any other. Hurricane Helene. We don't know how many people have been killed by Hurricane Helene. It covered several states. We're looking at, of course, Asheville, North Carolina, which is an iconic city in the country, home of probably the most grand home in the United States. But it's also mountainous. It's also part of Appalachia, and Appalachia is one of the richest areas in the country. Not monetarily, no, the people there don't have the money, but the soil has the money. They have trillions of dollars of minerals up under their feet, and so that's something to think about, everybody. It's a lot of valuable land that people will no longer occupy. Read into that what you will. That having been said, the people of North Carolina are crying out. And I want to dispel some myths because I don't want to be guilty of misrepresenting anyone. FEMA, our government and their efforts, because there are a lot of good people who are trying to do the best that they can. And private citizens trying to do the best that they can. But they don't have an opportunity. They don't have a way of communicating with us. And some people are just trying to get the word out. And yesterday, hope I did not misreport. And if I did, I apologize for it and I want to make up for it. I've talked to many people who are there in North Carolina, and people who are in other parts of the country who've had to get FEMA aid. And some people said, look, I want you to know that the $750 is a grant. I said, but a FEMA administrator and other people who are involved in North Carolina are saying that no, it's not a grant. And I want to find out what the deal is so that people can have the right information, because it ought to be a grant. And everything that they get from the government ought to be a grant because it's your money anyway. Hey, Miss Wanda, our friend,
Right.
our beloved Miss Wanda Waiters is there watching us right now, Minister Curtis Gatewood. So we want to know what's going on there. But we do know this: tens of billions of dollars have gone to Ukraine, they've gone to Israel, and they've gone to our military expeditions in particular, principally because they're the ones who get their money off the top. And many Americans, as I look at television shows, as I listen to radio shows, are wondering, what about me? What about me? $750 is really not a lot of money at all when you've lost everything or when you don't have access to anything. Think about that. I mean, and don't think that the people of Ukraine and the people of Israel are just getting the money. That's not happening either. The military industrial complex, they're getting their money, because these bombs, they need to be made. So all of these companies, these military companies that make the bombs, that make the fighter jets, et cetera, that make the submarines, they're the ones who are getting the money. So everybody, please thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. But aid is also going to other people in other countries, principally those two. They're getting the money off the top, and now we're looking at Lebanon, as an expanding war over there. In the meantime, while we have troops and boots on the ground over there, we need them here. We need them here. We have at least 1,000 people who are unaccounted for in North Carolina, and now we've got Hurricane Milton heading to the western shores, the western part of Florida. They're saying that this hurricane is so fierce that it cannot even be measured. It is breaking the scale. Wow, everybody. And we have a disaster that we have not even begun to calculate. No one's talking about this in corporate media.
That's correct.
No one's doing that. But I promise you, people there are suffering. And I want to cover this story as I would cover any other. So, Lorraine, sending you so much love. I hope you are feeling better, Lorraine. Take care of yourself. Get that ginger tea, that ginger and lemon tea, and get that zinc, 300 milligrams a day. Yes, 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 yes. You need that. That you need to build up your immune system. You know what I'm talking about. Jewel up there in New York, sending you so much love. Robert Williams, hey, 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 shalom once again. And Kenneth and Andre, sending you all so much love today. So let's talk about this. And at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have Daryl Jones from the Transformative Justice Coalition, who's going to talk to us about voting, because we're less than 4 weeks away from voting. And that is a concern. As the mayor of Tampa, Florida, told everybody, get out of here. This hurricane is something we have not seen. If you stay here, you will die. And I don't think that she was engaging in hyperbole. Everybody's saying that. They're saying that we cannot, if this hurricane holds up, we'll probably lose the western part of the state of Florida. That's a lot, everybody, a lot of water erosion for an area that's essentially swampland. So there's that. But let's talk about North Carolina, which is a disaster by any metric that is unfolding. And part of the reason it's been hard for me to find people, Minister Gatewood, and I've had to go to you because you're a wonderful, wonderful source and friend there, is that people, from what I can understand, because we were going to get some people from Democracy Green on, which is a wonderful organization that does tremendous work in the environmental space and in the voting space in that state. We want to send our loves to Sonia and Lamisha Whittington, mother and daughter, who were trying to get on the show, but they can't get a connection. But they are on their way to deliver goods to people now. Because if you go online, Minister Gatewood, they're saying, look, don't go to FEMA. Just come right to me. I mean, I'm just seeing a lot of people who are in North Carolina and who have been impacted by Hurricane Helene, and they are desperate and they're angry. So talk to me. What is going on down there?
First of all, again, I want to thank you, and I actually want to inject one of my favorite scriptures, which comes from Jesus the Christ directly, as he talks about, as he introduces himself to to those who may ultimately be followers. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent me to heal the brokenhearted, preach deliverance to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty them that are bruised or oppressed." And that is what we're seeing in North Carolina. People are bruised. People are overwhelmed. There's a need for prayer. There's a need for unity across this country. And the sad thing about it, Sister Santita, is some people are using this as a political football to divide, to continue blaming one side or the other, spreading lies about certain, sending out misinformation. So these are the things that the people are having to navigate through as they try to assist. And as you mentioned earlier about Sister Lamisha and her mother, Sonia, these are people who are actually on the ground trying to help. And they had to end up being assaulted by a store manager that right there, Ingalls, in Statesville, which is of course the western part of North Carolina. They were trying to just buy water, and they had to be assaulted. The mother of Lamisha, and Lamisha, she's one of our activists in North Carolina. I actually just saw her mother for the first time by just reviewing the video. It was sent to me after I was asking people about what was going on the ground, who was hurting, and their story just came out. It's really appalling. You probably can. We'll try to do more to share that story, but ultimately, in a nutshell, they were just actually trying to buy water. The store had a list of things that you could buy that would be limited. Like for example, you can only buy one case of water, but then they found water that was not on the list, that was in a 12 pack. That was kind of like sports water. So they were just trying to get anything they could. So they filled up the buggy with that. And when they got to the cash register, the cashier told them they couldn't get it. They ended up getting the manager involved. Ultimately, the manager yelled at and actually assaulted the mother of Lamisha. And you can just see it on video.
Why
Excuse me.
assaulted? I mean, so what happened?
Yeah, he grabbed her and was yelling, saying, "Get out," because she continued to challenge him. These are very intelligent Black people. And they were actually, whenever they told them what they couldn't buy, they were explaining to them that they were trying to get it to help the people, across who were ultimately, just being devastated because they didn't have water. So every time the manager said something, the lady would point to his sign, which said, you don't have this listed as things that are limited to purchase. So why isn't it up here if we want to buy this particular brand of water? And of course, he got to the point where he just told her to get out and grabbed at her. She had on a mask. And when he grabbed at her, the mask came off. He actually put his hands on her. And one of the assistant managers jumped in between the manager and Lamisha's mother, and I mean, it's all caught on video. It's unbelievable. It's appalling. I mean, that just that messed me up. So right now, I think there's going to be a lawsuit coming. Of course, there's the Whittington family. They are putting some things together, some facts. They have a couple of videos already out on this, but that just took my, I was just appalled. And so that is the biggest story right now. I'm trying to find out ways people need help. And while I'm searching, I'm finding that the people who are actually trying to help are being assaulted at certain stores when they're trying to buy water. Something as simple as the good deed of buying water. And so I invited her, of course, to be on the show with us.
Yeah.
At first, she felt like she could, but then apparently there's some signal complication that they're having there. And of course, they're also in the process. My brother Leon Gatewood also had reached out to him because they're also on their way. They're trying to make some deliveries. So a lot of people that I actually know personally are on the ground working, and it's, and like you said earlier, every human being must be acknowledged in a time such as this, because I also have my thoughts, of course, about what is going on with the Palestinian family, because I see the world as this place where it's not about just America. It's not about just pledging allegiance to a flag. It's about pledging allegiance to your brother, your sister, your God, and that has no place. And so right now, what I'm seeing on the ground is, and there, of course, FEMA is out there. They're trying to do their thing. At the same time, while I may not know all of what is going on with FEMA, I do know this, that the Republicans, Trump, and other people see this as an opportunity to suggest that there's not enough happening rather than getting out there and actually helping. There are people out here who are actually politicizing and trying to say whatever is not happening for the people on the ground. This is a political football that can be used to get me into the position. And we already know when Trump was in, he was actually the one who actually was taking funds from FEMA. And they're trying to politicize everything as a way to divide us with so-called illegal aliens. And which I don't know of any human being that's illegal unless you've actually committed a crime as Trump has. Other than that, you're a human being and you're not an illegal alien. But so this has become an issue where people are trying to see if the so-called illegal aliens are going to get funding, if the so-called illegal aliens are going to receive help. And when they do receive help, especially if it comes from the government, then that's used as a way to divide and suggest that we shouldn't be helping certain people. But we're having a problem here on the ground when it comes to people who are just actually trying to do something that is right. So we need to be praying. We need to be thinking about what is happening. And there are groups such as the Hollow Center out of Wadesboro, North Carolina. As you mentioned, you have Democracy, Democracy Green. You have, of course, we are asking people to contact FEMA because there are things that you need to really have as it pertains to the governmental assistance, because of the fact that there are monies that we already put into the pot. So while we do have people who are actually trying to come out of their own pockets, trying to do things, we certainly need to involve FEMA and have people to answer questions. I know there are also rumors about this is an opportunity for people to take land, when in fact we are saying to people, when you do answer that question about are you willing to relocate, any questions you have regarding that should be asked, but at the same time, what we are thinking that it means, and of course, everybody have to be really careful at this time, that are you willing to relocate out of the disaster area where you are now, not relocate and lose your home.
But
So
hold on. That's why you
yeah,
need lawyers, because I
yeah,
think that's where
exactly.
that's what I don't want to misreport,
Right,
because there was a man who identified himself as a former
right.
FEMA administrator who was online, and he also did several. He did at least one interview,
Hmm.
and there were several others that were reported on, in which he said, "Look, don't take the $750 because it is actually a loan, and if you read the fine print, which you can't read,
Absolutely.
they're saying that it's a loan, and if you don't pay it all back, you will have your land seized." Now, I've spoken to other people who said that's not true. This is the first part of a multi-part process where FEMA gives you relief. Now, this is the rub, which is what you just bumped into. The question is, for me, okay, when you ask me, am I willing to relocate?
Right.
What are you really asking me
Correct.
to do? And I ask that question because it's so ironic, everybody. The places with the poorest people have the greatest mineral wealth. Some of the poorest people on earth and some of the wealthiest people on earth are in Africa. And it is the richest continent on earth. Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world. You have a lot of people there who are struggling. Be very clear. Whenever we see these big fights over land, there is gold up there in them hills and in Appalachia. In the hills of North Carolina, you have got hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of mineral wealth that these people are living on.
Right.
So it makes me, and other people are speculating. I mean, that's what happened with Hurricane Katrina. People said, no, they're trying to move. I remember I was working at Push at the time, Operation Push at Rainbow Push.
Right.
And people were calling and they said, we need to get Reverend down here. And Reverend was in Venezuela. And he was working with President Chavez to get the marine hospitals there because their weather projections showed that this was going to be a storm of historic proportions.
Right.
And he said to Reverend Jackson, President Chavez said, Reverend, we need to get these marine hospitals there. We can get them there quicker than anybody. And the government, American government, turned them down. They said the loss of life will be massive. These are actual hospitals. We can take care of hundreds of people per hospital per marine hospital. They turned them down. And everybody who would call in would say, we heard an explosion.
Right.
They said, no. I said, an explosion? They said, yes. And we've lived here. I know an explosion. I said, ma'am, I was not questioning
Right.
you at all. I just want to be clear. So when I speak to Reverend Jackson, before you do, I need to tell him what you said. And particularly now because it's fresh and I don't want memory to play tricks on you. You're saying you
Absolutely.
heard an explosion. She said, we kept hearing a knock at the standing wall in the lower ninth ward. And then we heard the explosion, which means that the wall had been knocked down, and the pressure of the water that had been held back created an explosion.
Right.
And it turns out the Bro brothers had a barge that had not been moved. It had
Right.
been tied to the standing wall, and it kept knocking the wall throughout the storm. That's what created that. So when you saw all of the flooding in the lower ninth, that's what happened.
Yeah. And similarly, see, North Carolina consists of about 100 counties. Asheville is Buncombe County, which is about 95,000 people. There's about 2 lakes there that surrounds the county or the city, and this amount of water, which is basically unseen. I'd probably say at least probably 50 years, just set up that particular area for a perfect storm, unfortunately.
Mm.
And so now much of the focus is actually in Asheville, North Carolina, near the mountains. In fact, I've had to speak at the in fact, where I spoke, you had to go past Asheville and more into the mountains. Actually, I'm not a mountain person. I prefer not to live in the mountains, but I've had to go there on a couple of occasions with my wife on King Day celebrations, speaking there. And it is really, it's interesting how you would think living in the mountains would be safe ground
Mm-hmm.
because you're elevated, but the way it's set up, the water will rush down into the area of Statesville, which is a little bit lower than the actual mountains that surround Fayette, State.
Asheville.
Yeah, Asheville. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I got so many calls in
No,
now.
no, no. I mean,
I got
but
Statesville on the line.
it's more than
But yeah,
Asheville.
so Asheville.
I mean, it's more than Asheville. So there's a lot, and it's more than North Carolina. There's a lot
Absolutely. When you
of
start getting out of North Carolina, you're talking about Georgia. There's several, about 6 states at least that are
Mhm.
involved. And like you said, the casualties are just really countless. People just can't even know. There's, there are probably at least 200 people missing here just in North Carolina alone. And so,
Oh, and hold on. I just got a breaking news that the president had scheduled trips to Angola and to Germany, which he has canceled because of Hurricane Milton. I
correct.
mean, we have got an absolute disaster. We're going to bring on Attorney Darrell Jones shortly to join us from the
Okay.
Transformative Justice Coalition because we've got the elections that are exactly a month away.
Exactly.
How will these people vote?
And
I
I
mean,
tell you,
since everybody's looking for ID, I don't think I'm looking for ID when my home is flooding. I'm
come
trying to
on.
get out of there, right?
Exactly. And so it's a
Mhm.
good idea too that, and I'm hoping that more attorneys are involved, and I'm pretty sure you'll get more information about some of the attorneys who are actually involved. But you're right. This is really a time for not just praying, but we have to pray with our thoughts, our minds, our legal uh, resources, our financial resources. Sometimes people are waiting on Jesus when Jesus is waiting on us.
How about
And
that?
so a lot of people may be sitting around, saying this is the time to have more prayer meetings, which of course I say people can pray and work simultaneously.
No,
And I
first of
think
all,
that
wait.
yes,
That's what waiting does not mean that you are still.
exactly.
Waiting means that you are working,
Come on now.
and you are working until your change comes. That
Exactly.
has been the biblical interpretation that I've got. A waitress is not still.
Come on now.
A waitress is working.
Exactly.
I mean,
It's
and so the people need to stop that. The thing is, and now more than ever, you need to be asking questions of your government. And this has nothing to do with whether you are Republican, Democrat, or
absolutely.
outside the system. Because now we just got from the Arizona Christian University, they did a study that shows that 104 million Americans who are religious are not planning to vote.
See,
No,
this is
no, no, because they don't trust the system. They don't trust the outcome. They don't like both parties. There is a lot going on here. And this is your money, everybody, in the pot. But other people, you're right, they're getting fed first. But don't look at these migrants who were brought in here by the tent program for refugees.
right.
They're not your problem. This is a false choice.
Absolutely.
America is so rich. It can take care of you, me, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. It can do
Absolutely.
that. And it should take care of Americans first. There's no question about that. But we can afford to be generous. Don't ever get stingy with the wealth, with the bounty that God has given you. Don't do that. We need to stop that. The
It's just
fact is we are being asked to make these false choices.
absolutely.
They would. And so we're turning on each other instead of turning to each other. We need to be in these parking lots that are dry, like I've been seeing, and cooking some food. Don't
Absolutely.
ask people for ID. They're hungry. Get them something to eat.
It's
Open up
exactly.
your churches. Let people go to sleep. Let people shower. Or can they shower? That's my question. Because if the water, if this is this kind of problem, that means the water. If you have to boil the water, that means you can't bathe in it.
Absolutely.
Okay, what I mean, and you know what? I wouldn't confine it to Asheville in the mountains. I'd look at the whole state because
Absolutely.
water flows, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do, and that's one of the reasons why I did want to bring in the church with the time that I do have. Being a person who actually has studied theology, when you hear all the rhetoric out here about what Jesus would have us to do, and then you have people who are selling Bibles who have never read the Bibles. And I say to you, if you're not going to read the whole Bible, at least read the red, because that's when Jesus is talking. And I would say to those people, first of all, we often talk about faith and we have church and we have all these different things, but Jesus makes it clear, as much as you've done unto the least of my brethren. When I say the least, it doesn't mean that someone is inferior. It means that that person might be least powerful. That person may not have as much access to power based upon systemic issues, not because they're less intelligent, not because they're so supposedly inferior, but the fact that we have bad people, evil people in high places who are actually making it harder for people who have less resources. So the least of these is how we'll be measured if you actually read the Bible. And to the rich man, he's saying, take your wealth and distribute it amongst the poor. Otherwise, it would be easier for a camel to get into the eye of a needle than for you to get through the kingdom. I don't know why I don't ever hear those scriptures
Mhm.
when we have these rich folk who are selling Bibles rather than taking money and giving what they already have and distributing it amongst the poor. And like I said, that's also consistent with reparations, giving back to those that you've stolen from, that you've taken from systematically, or whether it's a person who honestly just capitalized off poor people. Either way, the problem, Sister Jackson, is that there's never any giving back to those of us who are struggling. And
Mhm.
if that was happening, then when we have these types of situations, we would not have such a crisis where we have people who've lost everything they have but have no way of recovering and depending on these scam uh, scam artists or scams within the system that would take advantage of people who do not have resources.
We're talking with Minister Curtis Gatewood down there in North Carolina. In fact, Stop Killing Us is his solutions initiative. But we are looking at, because he's a minister, he's also engaged in this rescue effort that, quite frankly, all of America needs to be engaged. And now we've got Florida. They say
Lord
that
have mercy.
this will be category 6. They've never even measured a category 6.
Right. Wow.
Nothing will be left behind a category 6 or even a category 5. Nothing. And now we are in the voting season, everybody. And so these people need water
Yep.
because the water that they have is not safe. They say
Correct.
boil it with what? No electricity. I'm just trying to find out like who's doing the thinking here because there we have marine hospitals. We have these tremendous we can almost transport a city and save a place. I'm trying to find out where America's resources are.
Right.
And it's and I'm not saying that that the people who work in FEMA are at fault. No, they're working as hard as they can. They're the people on the ground. They're the people, excuse me, that you are seeing.
Right.
But someone did see Secretary Mayorkas shopping through all of this. I ain't mad at you, but I think you need to be at that office
Come
trying to
on.
figure out. You need to be talking to the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and figuring out how to get boots on the ground there. That's what the peacekeepers need to be there.
And,
Okay.
and
Yes.
Santita, I just want to just thank you because see, a lot of times our people are having to rely on mainstream media, and what people don't seem to understand sometimes, mainstream media, they're often a part of the problem because they're a part of this validation process where they pick and choose certain black folk or certain people that they feel are safe, and so they get the safe folk who are not really talking about the poor people who are on the ground and who always have a certain script or a place where they will not go. I mean, there's a line that they will not cross. But I'm thankful that we have people like yourself who are willing to give other voices a chance so that we can speak to what we see on the ground, and how a lot of times our leaders in our organizations seem to have been bought and sold, and they can't speak for justice the way they used to. And so I'm thankful that we do have a place, and I'm so glad that I met you, that we have a
Oh,
place where we can come sometimes and we don't just have to cry alone in our own little corners, where voices can be heard, new voices. And we don't have to be Reverend Dr. Bishop, whatever, but we can actually be a real people with real problems, with real families who are seeing things, who are seeing not only our white folk doing us badly, but certain folk who are validated or self-aggrandizing folk, jealous folk who are insecure, who are also stumping and stepping on real voices out there who are crying in the wilderness. And people are crying, Sister Jackson. And thank you for just at least giving me the opportunity to say something to a brother or a sister. It's going to be okay somehow, some way. And this is the time to use faith. After you've done all you can do, this is what I say again. Don't wait on the Lord while he waits on you. We have to do everything that we can do, every imaginable resource within our bodies, within our finances, within our intellect. We have to use everything we have, exhaust it, and then you can wait on the Lord. And the Lord will come, I believe. But first, we have to do what we have to do, Sister
well,
Jackson.
the Lord is already here. Where,
Come
where,
on.
where are you? No, 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 no. Faith without works is dead. Now,
Exactly.
where are you? And where are we? And you know, if you don't have money, you do have access to even going down to your alder's office, your city administrator's office, somebody, and say, y'all need to help them. See, one day it can and will be you. Let me bring on Attorney Darrell Jones, um, because we're looking at the vote now too.
Amen.
I mean, all that's important. All that
Amen.
is important. All that is important.
Mhm.
We've got Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and we have got a disaster that has unfolded in North Carolina. Corporate media, they're not touching it.
Right.
They ought to be talking about this every day. They should be talking about this with the same amount of seriousness that we approached October 7th, and we should have acknowledged that yesterday. We should have acknowledged that. They should have done more acknowledging of the Palestinians as well,
Come on now.
because you've got to have balance. You got to have context for everything.
That's correct.
Got to. But now we've got to vote. I mean, the mayor of Tampa said, everybody get out. And I mean, without exception, if you stay here, you're going to die. They are, it has been projected. Now they're open. You can always tell that there's something going on because the news is being opened with the weather. Okay. And they're saying this is a storm unlike any we have ever seen in our lifetimes. We've never heard of a cat. We stop at category 5. Category 6, we cannot even measure. That is what we're looking at, everybody. Because what was shocking to me as I'm watching this storm build, Hurricane Milton, even though I've got more than 1,000 people missing behind Hurricane Helene, which nobody wants to talk about, that's 1,000 plus people whose loved ones can't find them. You're seeing body parts sticking out of mud. Those are the reports that I'm reading. In Greenville, South Carolina, which is where my father's from, and may God bless my grandma Helen, I'm so glad she didn't live to see this. She just died 9 years ago. FEMA was blocking private planes from coming into the airport. People are trying to get goods to folks, and for whatever reasons, they're being blocked. It's not right. People are going to starve. Now, I was out last night at an event, as I shared with you, Minister Curtis Gatewood and Attorney Darrell Jones, and it was on the lake. It was an October 7th commemoration, and I think, if not now, in these wonderful Jewish and Palestinian groups who came together to commemorate that moment. It was cold outside, and when I got in the car to go home, I was like, what's the temperature? And he said it's 49 degrees. I said, goodness gracious. See, it's about to snow in the mountains in North Carolina, which is what the ground is about to freeze. The bodies that they can get right now that they might be able to extract from the mud. Oh, no. I'm trying to paint the picture for you because this is what they're dealing with. They're going to be frozen in place. Now, all of this effort that we're putting into dropping bombs overseas, you need to get a shovel and pull our people out and give them a proper burial. You need to be feeding the people in the United States. And yes, I mean the migrants too. Because we're the ones who have upended their government in Venezuela and all over the world. That's why they're here. You don't have 3 million people running away from home because they certainly found nirvana in America. We have tried to jam their country. They nationalized their oil because before they nationalized the oil, the American and the European companies were down there taking the oil and making money. And what Chavez and Gaddafi and other people said was, enough. You can't just profit off of us. I need to give the profits to the people. That's what happened. That's the story, y'all. That's the story.
Absolutely.
And the story is right now, our people are cold. They are starving. They don't have access to to a mobile network. They don't have access to electricity. They do not have they do not have access to clean water. How are they using the restroom? How are they relieving themselves?
Right.
How are women taking care of themselves? What about someone who's having a baby? What about hospitals? Our place is looking like Gaza right now. And Gaza shouldn't look like Gaza. And certainly Asheville and the rest of the United States shouldn't look like that either. No place on earth should look like these places are looking. Attorney Darrell Jones, and on top of that, we have a vote in 4 weeks from today. How is that going to work?
Well, Santita, it's interesting that you say we have a vote in 4 weeks. And what you're making reference to is the actual last day to vote is in 4 weeks. In North Carolina, they're casting early votes beginning October the 17th. So, those ballots have gone out. People have received them or should have received them. And so when we have, this occurrence that we've now had, this natural travesty that we've now had in North Carolina, it has upended a lot of this. What the North Carolina Board of Elections has done is that they have designated that there have been 13 out of the 100 counties in North Carolina that are severely impacted by this hurricane, by the storm. And so now what does that mean? So these absentee ballots have been requested and perhaps sent out, but the places where they're going, the home may no longer be there. The people may not be there anymore, that they've abandoned the area because of the storm. It may be that they can't get the forms back to the Board of Elections so they can get their applications, they can get their absentee ballots in time. So you have all of these factors that are weighing in. And let's add another layer to this, because we're just talking about the people that the actual voters, those that are working those polls, they live in those communities too. So they too will be, displaced. And so the whole system there with regards to the ability to cast those early votes, the early absentee votes that begin next week, that's now impacted. That's all incredibly impacted. And so the question becomes, what do you do? And what actions and steps can be taken to secure people's vote? Well, let's add another layer to it, Santita, because when we start layering, we want to be certain we have a lot of the layers.
Yes.
In North Carolina, this will be the first significant election where their new requirement of having a copy of your identification along with the absentee ballot, along with 2 witness signatures for the absentee ballot to be counted, now takes place. If you're displaced, where are you going to find 2 witnesses? Are you going to go looking for a copying machine? If there's no electricity, what do you do? So you have all of these factors that are there and at the feet of the voters, and trying to figure out what to do. How do I receive my absentee ballot? Where do I take it to? The roads, as Minister Gatewood was talking, the roads are blocked, right? So there's certain roads you can't even go down. The post office can't deliver things to you. You can't get things out. There's a whole piece that's there that's now disrupted in the voting system. And, so when we start looking at that, we then start looking at what the response should be. The typical response, I would think, would be, well, let's start extending the time for these voters to be able to get things in and to receive it. It's not the discussion that's going on in North Carolina. They're not talking about extending anything.
And one moment, if you don't mind, because I'm going to have to let Minister Curtis Gatewood go. Past November 6th, there's nothing sacred about November 6th.
Right.
I mean, we have catastrophic events that have occurred. People are trying to figure out how to live from day to day. Trust and believe in 4 weeks, they will not have worked it out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, we have to vote by November. No, you don't. No, you don't have to do any of that. Please, I saw Bill Cosby's cases be sealed, and somebody ran and said, I don't care how they were sealed. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna run so I can send this 80-plus-year-old man to jail. These folks do whatever it is that they want to do. Now, I mean, I'm putting it right there, and I'm tired of it. You ought to be tired of it too, because guess what? It could happen to you. And what would you want to be here, even though you absolutely need to vote? Would you want to be hearing about the vote when you're up to your nose in water in your house?
Come on, man.
When you have no electricity, when you cannot use a mobile phone, when people are trying to reach you to get food to you, they can't reach you because they can't use the phone themselves. The whole infrastructure of the region has been compromised, everybody. We have a 100-plus-year-old infrastructure in the United States anyway.
Absolutely.
And actually, the South's infrastructure is newer than ours because you were rebuilt really after the Civil War, which is better. That's why when we go south and we look so fresh and lovely, we're always a little shocked. But you all are building down there. And, Minister Gatewood, because before you continue, Daryl Jones, because what you're giving us is really important information, because I think we need to call our representatives and push on this, because now Florida, the western part of Florida, is about to be empty. What are they supposed to do? I don't know where they're going. I mean, you're catching people in the middle of the pay cycle. I mean, I hope they have money to go. I mean, moving is not easy. You have to have some money to move.
Absolutely.
Minister Gatewood, what would you like for us to know before you go?
Yeah, and again, when you say you need money to move and do all these other things, again, we have to proactively, as a community, look out for people who are struggling, because we do, in fact, need to push for reparations and other compensation that people need, without having to always say we need affordable this and affordable that. No, we need our money. And then if you give me my money, then a lot of things will be affordable. So that's one thing. And I do want to say, my daughter couldn't be on here. She's with Democracy, North Carolina, and her name is Jasmine Curtis Gatewood. You probably might have heard of her, Dr. Jones. I mean, Daryl. And just want you to know she wanted to be here, but she couldn't. But I do want you to know that we have great people in North Carolina, and I'm honored to be here with Dr. Attorney Jones. And anything that I can do, we are here. My number is 919-939.
Okay, well, you're putting it out there, but that's all right because people
311. If there's
say
any
it
way.
one more time.
919-939-6311. You can call me at any time. I actually sometimes answer the phone. I might, if you have to leave a message first, probably for me to screen it. But we are doing what we can to assist and support great people who are in fact working. And for Stop Killing Us Solution Campaign, skuproject.com, skuproject.com, and any other thing that we can do to assist Sister Jackson and just help you to continue your success, because we are blessed to have you, that you will open up your platform and let real people talk. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you. God bless you. But this is what we do. This is what we're supposed to do. This is what we're supposed to do. My father said, if you need thanks, you don't deserve it.
Come on.
There you go. I mean, really.
Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you. And it's my dad's birthday today, everybody. Please wish him a happy
Oh, happy birthday. Oh,
no, don't worry. Thank you so
love
much.
you. All right.
Love you too. Love you too. The
All
city
right.
of Chicago is going to thank you, Mayor Brandon Johnson. They're giving him the key to the city. And we thank God for that today. So that's why we're taping a little early today, because I'm going to have to get down to City Hall to do that. My father's 83. Can you believe it? That having been said, I want to pivot back to you, Attorney Daryl Jones, because this is a big issue. When I called you this morning, I knew you had a lot going on, and I'm going to have you in the next hour because we're talking about our polling. But I think we kind of need to bring this into the discussion in the next hour as well, because people need to vote, and at some point, we need to. No, right now we need flexibility here. No, I mean, people are, I don't know where people from Florida are going. They're being scattered to the four winds. How do you find them? Where do they go vote? Are you going to put them in prison like you put Crystal Mason in prison because they can't prove who they are? How, the last thing you're looking for is your birth certificate or your social security number when you're trying to grab a loved one and get out of water that is filthy, and you can't even stay there. So I mean, what do you recommend that we do? Because a lot of people don't have identification.
Right.
A lot of folks whose stories I've been seeing in social media and on YouTube, et cetera, they look so exhausted and completely bewildered, as you would be. Look, I mean, we're in the comforts of our home, in the comfort of our homes, shall I say? Can you imagine if you woke up tomorrow and looked outside and water was at your bed? I mean, think about that. I mean, what would you do? You'd be trying to get out of there, and voting would be the last thing on your mind. But voting is absolutely what you need to do, and we need to, and that's why I want to get past the misinformation, and I don't want to be guilty of giving that to you either. But I am always trying to figure out motives, because now they want to know if you're willing to stay where you are. And the reason I have questions about that, Attorney Daryl Jones, is because that part of the country they have untapped billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of resources under that soil where those poor people live. Poor white, black, and brown people. They live there. Poor, the voiceless, the least of these, if you will. And people are speculating about it, and they should. They absolutely should. Like Gaza, when you see that Gaza, they're sitting on billions upon billions of dollars of mineral and oil wealth, gas wealth. Of course, and you see the people as they're killing these folks, they're planning for them to. They're already planning for them to have a beachfront community,
Resorts. Mhm.
resorts. So so I'm just trying to find out, in the last couple of minutes, we literally have 2 minutes, and we have to pop over to the next segment. What do we do? What do people do? People who've been uprooted, people who are there who are trying to figure it out because everybody can't leave.
Mhm.
How are they going to vote?
Right. And, the big issue, one of the big issues, in a very short period of time is that in a lot of these areas, Florida, for instance, the legislatures are out. They're not in session. They're not a
Mhm.
year-round legislative session. One of the things that can happen, as happened previously in North Carolina, is that there can be a special call of the legislature, of the state legislature, to put in place protections and emergency legislation to permit folks to be able to vote, to waive some of the requirements that have been there and have been previously passed. But because of this special situation that exists, that they can waive many of those requirements to make the voting more accessible to those people that are now displaced and may not have their ID, may not have access to their polling place, because polling places are shut down, right? So they may not have access to it. A lot of polling places are what? They're in churches, they're in schools, right? They're in fire stations. Well, all of those are being used as shelters now. In some of these places, so they can't be a polling place. And so there has to be emergency, and there should be emergency legislation that should be put in place to make it more accessible for those people that are impacted to be able to vote. So if you're one of those people that's impacted, one of the things you want to do is try to find out if there has been legislation that's being in place, ways to contact someone to find out where it is that you can access your vote. Contact your Board of Elections, if possible, to find out what's going on and ask the question, how do I get my vote in? How can I vote? And hopefully they're not saying, come on, drive down here to the Board of Elections to be able to do it.
Well, and maybe what we can do for those of us who have access to communications, call your own representative,
Mhm.
and tell them that you want to help them. And would they ask their colleagues in North Carolina and the other 5 or 6 states that have been impacted by this thus far? Um, what can we do, and what are you doing to ensure that they're going to be able to vote? Not by November 6th. Maybe we need to extend the date. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that. You can do that. Extend the date. Extend it. Extend the date. You can do that. They can do that if they want to.
Right.
And that needs to
Especially in
happen.
states like North Carolina, Santita, where, if their absentee ballot is not in by November the 5th, they don't count it. They don't count it.
How are you going to mail anything right now?
So exactly, that's the issue. And that's the issue.
You can't mail anything. There's something you could do. So something has to happen here, everybody. Something has to happen. And we need to help our fellow Americans because they need our help now more than ever. So let's talk about this and the polling. The polling is, wow, it is giving us a lot to think about and a lot to work on over the next 3.5 weeks. It's unbelievable. You cannot make this stuff up. Oh, I mean, and we're praying for the people of Florida and Governor DeSantis. You really need to answer your vice president's call. She outranks you, my friend. Yeah, that part. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes.